All right, thank you. Well, you've already met Andy, and now I'd like to bring out the other panelists for today. Our first panelist is Eric Kimberly, right to my left here. He's a global digital transformation expert, highly recognized independent ERP systems expert. Welcome.
Thank you.
We also have Nick Mueller, who's Director of ERP Systems, who's leading the charge in cloud adoption, continuous improvement, and M&A onboarding at NJET Aero. Welcome. And lastly, we have David Holm, who is President of Kiski Precision and Operations Leader with over 20 years of experience in manufacturing precise motion solutions. So welcome all of you. And now what we'd like to do is hear a little bit more about your company. I know, Andy, you gave us kind of a little bit of the highlights. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
You bet. Thanks for the opportunity, Christine. So again, my name is Andy Haraski. I work for Magna International, and in some circles I find that Magna is the largest company that a lot of people don't know anything about. So a little bit about more what Magna does. We're a mobility company, and frankly, a lot of our revenue right now is generated and has been by being one of the top tier one automotive suppliers in the industry. We do so running a company that's just under $40 billion in revenue. We have 341 manufacturing centers and another 88 product development centers across the globe, operating out of 29 countries. We do so with 171,000 employees. My role with the company has to do with stuff you don't see on a car. So in fact, Magna is present on about 80% of all vehicles manufactured today has some sort of content. The pieces that I'm focused on are a lot of the underbody structure, things you don't see, frames, now battery trays with electrification, which we'll talk more about. And those divisions are specifically within a group called Cosma and within our USA West region. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, great. Nick, can you give us a little more insight into NJET Aero and how you deliver precise motion?
Yeah, thank you. NJET Aero is a precision manufacturing for the aerospace engine sector. We do machining, fabrication, multi-part assemblies for pretty much any engine that is up in the air. We're a company that's new. We've been around since 2017, built on acquisition. We're 9 manufacturing facilities starting in the Midwest, moving up through the East Coast, kind of taking the aerospace engine supply chain or supply market over and being the best.
Very good. And David, we'd all be interested in how your plant floors are automated with your motion technology. Can you tell us a bit more about Aerotech?
Sure, Christine, thank you. And thank you for having me. Aerotech is a high-precision motion control company. What does that mean? That means that we move things back and forth and round at levels of precision that nobody can see and very few people even understand. We have the markets that we serve are the energy industry, medical device manufacturing, consumer electronics, and the semiconductor industry. We have 8 companies operating internationally, and some of the cool things that we do with Epicor, we finitely schedule over 20,000 jobs every Saturday. We run MRP every weekday evening. We use Capable to Promise to schedule every new order that comes in. And we also are able to close our books financially every month within 24 hours.
Whoa. All right, Eric, you can go after that. Thank you for joining us today. Business is really focused on helping companies optimize the use of technology to solve and elevate their businesses. How does your organization help manufacturers?
Sure. Well, thanks for having us, and that is a tough act to follow after these 3. But my name is Eric Kimberly. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting, and we help manufacturers define their digital strategies and roadmaps, which includes evaluating and selecting technology. But then we also help them through the implementations as well. So we help with some Epicor implementations as well as other system providers. We're independent technology agnostic, which means we're not affiliated with Epicor, although we have a great relationship with Epicor. And that's primarily how we help them, is through the entire transformation journey.
Very good. Okay, so let's get started, panelists. Now, the first topic we're going to talk about is around innovation. And many businesses today, this is something that we're obviously is top of mind for many of us, is top trends in sustainability. And this has been a primary driver for a lot of innovation that we're seeing today in particular. And I know, Andy, your business is at the forefront of this. How is this trend impacting you, and what are some of the opportunities that you're seeing as a result?
Great questions, Christine. And I think the word sustainability evokes a lot of things for me, but mostly it is the transformation of the automotive industry and this whole electrification that's happening. That is what I wake up every morning thinking about and go to bed every night, if I'm lucky, thinking about as well. So this is literally, it's the one of the most transformative times we've ever been through in automotive. The billions, tens, hundreds of billions, in fact, that are being invested in this are quite extraordinary. We have seen this as a real opportunity, but also a threat, as many of us have. So a lot of the work that we take pride in is done on underbody structure in vehicles, as I said, and that's looking a lot different these days. So where we would usually have a frame, now we may have a structural battery tray, or we may have a frame with a non-structural battery tray. So we're getting involved in all of those areas, and happy to say things are going well so far. The other point that comes to mind when we talk about sustainability is getting more effective and efficient use out of our transportation modes. So transportation as a service. And I believe as autonomous driving gains popularity, as the technology matures, there's going to be a time when transportation truly is a service, and we're ordering vehicles to come pick us up and take us from point A to point B, and then they go on to pick up the next person. And I don't think that's that far off, 12 to 15 years. Those are my thoughts.
Wow. And I know, Nick, we had conversations yesterday. We were at the same table. We talked a little bit about what's happening in the aerospace industry as well. And, some drivers around efficiency that you're seeing perhaps, and how you're being impacted from an innovation perspective.
Yeah, thank you. Similar to what Andy said, motion is the planes that are flying in the air have the same initiatives. They want to get as many people moving as fast as they can and as efficiently as they can. So that's creating new innovation, new design, kind of rewriting the script on that. So we're seeing the same opportunities on that to get the industry as efficient as they can. Definitely the grounding of a lot of the old aircraft has pushed some of that too during the 2020 timeframe. So we're seeing a lot of new design developments coming out from it.
All right, very good. So now I'd like to do just a little bit of a double click into what's happening in the businesses in terms of innovation and the pace that you're seeing today. I know, David, recently I was able to visit your plant and see innovation in process. What can you share about how automation and motion are colliding and the pace of it, and how you're currently managing that?
Sure, Christine. So Aerotech traditionally would operate in mechanical and air-bearing systems. And we had our niche, and we would focus on either the manufacturing process or the inspection process at hand. But our customers have been demanding much more from us, not just in terms of our traditional motion capabilities. They've started to push the boundaries of how we do things. For example, we used to move a part underneath a fixed laser, and now using light manipulation technology, we actually move the laser instead of the part that's being manufactured. It's fair to say that 80% of the people in this room are impacted by that technology. They just don't know it. And not only that, but our customers are expecting us to understand the upstream and downstream parts of the manufacturing process as well. So we're being asked to understand how to hand off from a system that we did not manufacture, and be able to understand that. So the employment of automation engineers and investments in those areas are something we're definitely focused on.
Very good. And I know, Andy, I just went to your website, and I could see every component of every vehicle today. It looks as if it's being rethought. How is this impacting what you do, and how is your business coping?
Hey, you're right, Christine. I think all of those, most of what we see in a vehicle is changing. And I spoke earlier about a little bit of that structural work, but when I think about the processes that are being used to make those new products, the industry is doing a very good job, automotive for sure, in starting to use new joining technologies. So laser welding is a lot more prevalent than it used to be. We're learning a lot really fast. And at the same time, we're learning about a lot of new technologies and different ways to put things together. We also have a lot higher expectation from customers. So with the headlines on thermal incidents when it comes to electrification and all of these things, the burden on built-in quality and traceability of every step of every process is greater than it ever has been. And that's something that we're really putting a lot of attention to and investment in, to be sure.
Very good. So Eric, I want to bring you into the conversation now a little bit. I expect that, the clients that you work with, they're facing similar challenges. Are there any best practices that are being deployed to help manage this rate of change and innovation?
Yeah, it's a great question. And technology today is just changing so much. And we've seen a lot of that here throughout the Insights Conference, and some of the advancements and investments that Epicor has made in technology is sort of a microcosm of a bigger trend, which is technology is just changing at an accelerated pace. However, humans' ability to keep up with that technological change is not accelerating at as rapid of a pace. And David made an interesting comment earlier. Something you said that really stuck out was, it's a technology that impacts our daily lives, but we don't know it. And that's what you want. That's, to me, the ideal state of a transformation is you're using technology to drive innovation and to drive improvements to your business without it being disruptive in a negative way. And too often we get caught up in that chasm between technological change and humans' inability to keep up or difficulty keeping up. So back to the question about what are some of the best practices to manage that rate of innovation, you have to marry the technology and the technological tools with the process improvements that some of these guys have talked about, as well as the organizational and cultural change that goes along with that. Because just putting the tool in place by itself isn't going to drive innovation. It provides a framework or a foundation to potentially do it, but unless you add process improvement and the organizational change and the human component and the cultural shift that needs to happen along with that, that's really the secret sauce or the magic touch that you need to add to a transformation to actually drive that sort of innovation.
Very good. Thank you. No, very good. So let's transition to a topic all of us are very well aware of. This is around the supply chain, where we have disruption and cost and change that are all aspects of our supply chain challenges that we're feeling today. I'd be interested in what aspect is most painful for your business and how it's responding. And I know, Nick, yesterday we had a conversation about, the aerospace and defense supply chain. What have you found and how are you responding with some of those challenges?
Yeah, thank you. Probably like most people in here, supply chain's been tough. It's been the hardest thing to overcome right now in manufacturing. And so what we've had to do is get creative. Lead times are extending, just actual supply availability. You didn't have multiple places where you could just go and get all the material you needed. Now you're going to multiple places to just get enough material that you can make what you need. You're having to forecast further than your customers are forecasting for their demand. And to do that, you kind of have to get creative with your data. I heard this morning on the stage talking about, the town you're from or the demographics you're from, things like that. And you kind of have to think outside the box with your analytics of what you're going to predict is needed so that you don't end up in a situation. Because when you're talking 2 years lead time, you can't miss. You have to be ready. And you can't risk the inventory because the cash is king and you don't want to be sitting on it. So.
Absolutely. So David, let's shift to you. In the past, you've referred to dramatic material cost increases as being a challenge. How are you responding to this? And just as importantly, how are your customers responding and how are you helping them?
So the material costs have had a significant impact on our bottom line. There's no question about that. Aerotech is a forever company. We expect to be here forever, and that's the way we operate every day. And the way we've decided to handle the rising material costs is to not pass that on to our customers in the way of updating orders that are on the books with new prices. So we've essentially decided to eat those costs. We've made some price increases for the future, But we felt like it was in our best interest of our customers that that's the way we treated the problem. So because we took that stance, it forced us to be very creative internally with how to keep those costs as minimal as possible. So one of the ways that we've been able to do that is through developing our own internal services and companies that we can not only provide internal services for Aerotech, but we can also sell those services to other people as well.
Well, good. So let's shift to another topic. This is around automation and the smart factory. These solutions are mentioned by several of you to improve productivity on the plant floor, and it's a key strategy to produce more with less. Where are you in your automation strategy, and what does your 3 to 5 year plan look like? And I'd actually be interested, before I ask the question of any of you, how many of you in the room, with a show of hands, currently have an IoT project that you're working on? Quite a few of you. How many of you are connecting that IoT project with Kinetic? Okay, so I'm seeing a few opportunities for us here, and I know we talked about this yesterday as well. So let's see, so David, I go to you first here. So your business is at the heart of automation. Where do you think this technology is taking us?
So interestingly enough, Christine, we've been in automation for 50 years, but we are heavily an engineer-to-order company. We make one of something a lot. And that's difficult to automate because if you're never going to make it again, you don't really want to make that investment. So with that said, however, in recent years, we have started to deploy collaborative robots to do automated machine tending from a machining perspective. They do an assembly operation, and recently we've invested in laser welding technology similar to Magna, and we use the collaborative robots for that as well.
Very good. So Andy, off to you. So I know you have these planned strategies in this area. I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about what you're doing there.
Yeah, you bet, Christine. I think a lot of this electrification and autonomous driving is happening at the same time we're going through this Industry 4.0 revolution, and just so many different priorities. This is an area that we have, as a company, have invested strongly in as part of the $1 billion that we're investing in just the 7 plants that I'm working with today. There's a good piece of that budget that's going into just creating the foundation for different IoT projects, et cetera. I think to pick up on where Dave was talking, we build a lot of the same thing a whole lot of times. So we're high volume repetitive manufacturing. And what I'm most excited, I don't understand a lot of this stuff. I depend on people a lot smarter than me, but what I can see on our shop floors is a much better use of efficiency data. So not a very sexy topic, but we're doing a lot more than just measuring throughput by what comes out of the end of an assembly line. We're giving operators the ability to be able to control each and every cycle, give them visual information on exactly what the expectation is, what the standard is, allow those team leaders to be looking at dashboards so that they can offer assistance where needed. This is one of the most salient examples that I've seen so far in our business, and just doing as well a much better job of fault identification and getting that fault information to bubble up to action levels. We've always had the data, we always say we use it, we track mean time to failure, mean time to repair, we do all of this, but we've never really had in-our-face data summarized to a point where we can act on it when it's happening, and that's pretty exciting to me.
Yeah. So Eric, we'd all be interested to know how your clients are approaching these similar projects and what some of the top lessons learned are.
Sure. So essentially what we're talking about and what the responses so far have alluded to is a business model change. I mean, we're looking at ways that we can use technology to transform the way we do business. And the last thing we want to do is invest all this time and money in modern technology just to pave the cow paths and just to do things the way we've always done. So this really involves changing and rethinking our business, and that's what's so important to take the time to do during projects like this. And too often organizations get really caught up in, we're going to implement Epicor or whatever the system is, we're going to implement Epicor and we're going to do it in, say, 12 months. We've got to get that done in 12 months. that might be a realistic time frame, but you've got to look at it not just from the perspective of putting in new technology, but how are you going to rethink your business and how are you going to change your business processes, your operating model, your overall business model to really leverage these technologies. And sometimes that takes longer than, say, 12 months. And so you really have to find that right balance between trying to optimize implementation time and cost and business value. And again, back to the point I made earlier, so much of the technology is changing rapidly and creating these huge gaps between where we are today, where we could be in the future, that it takes you longer to get there than just to put in technology, than the time it might take to put in technology. So focusing on that future state operating model, as well as the organization and what that's going to look like, what your overall business model is going to be, taking the time to do the hard work behind that is really what will make the project successful. And our most successful clients are the ones that can do that piece of it well.
Oh, very good. Let's move on to another topic, and this is something that's been top of mind at many of the lunch tables that I've been at this week around artificial intelligence. Yesterday in the keynotes and throughout the conference, AI has been a point of conversation. What do you foresee on the horizon as far as how your industry will leverage AI? David, if you wouldn't mind starting for us.
Sure, Christine, no problem. So, I'm a degreed software engineer, and I was very proud of that. And it's a bit humbling to know that pretty much anybody in this room can go online now and ask the computer to create the types of software that I built my career on. So the times are certainly changing from an artificial intelligence standpoint. At Aerotech specifically, that's certainly an area that we're investigating, is the auto generation of software. But I think immediately its applications are probably better served on the legal and maybe administration side. The tools that are out there can lend themselves pretty well to helping you create documents and policies and things like that much faster than I certainly can. But I think there's always going to be a human in the loop, somebody who's going to have to make that decision, because there's a regulatory element to just turning the keys over to the computer in total.
Yeah, very good points. Nick, I know that from a regulatory and a security perspective, your team is very mindful of the impact of this as well. So how are you approaching this new frontier?
Yeah, I mean, definitely with the regulations that we're held under from the DoD and things like that, we take a little caution to it. Obviously, we want to see where we can benefit from it, where we can have a use case, but we have to be mindful of our regulations. So I would say that we're probably not as out on the forefront, but also looking at where we can get there using the technology.
I know that this is a bit off script, but we had a nice conversation yesterday about your thoughts around how AI can help employees. And you had a nice comment about what employees want to do and how AI might be able to help them. Do you remember, or do you want me to?
I mean, absolutely. The technology is moving faster than the person, right? And,
Sure.
and the adoption of that technology is probably moving faster than society. It all sounds great, it moves great, but we also have to get the people to understand and build them up. So you have to bridge the gap of the people that don't know and the people that are learning, and get everybody involved. Otherwise, it's not going to do any good to have it. So, I think that's one of the keys to utilizing it, is use it as a tool to build up the people, to build a better productivity, and use it for that purpose. So.
Oh, very good. I have a question here for you also on security, if you don't mind, because I know that it's not just the new technology, but how do we maintain that security level, especially in the aerospace and defense? I know automotive cares about it. Everyone cares about security today. Can you give us some insights into how your business is approaching security, some of the best practices that you've seen, and how you're doing that?
Yeah. Definitely when it comes to our ERP, the short answer is we're going to rely on Epicor to do that. That's why we chose to go to the cloud. We don't want to have to, we want to worry about it, but we also that's why we pay Epicor to worry about it for us, so we can worry about the other things that we have to get parts to our customers. But also, some of you might be aware of the CMMC requirements that are being handed down through the industry. that's one of our big initiatives that we have to abide by. So everything that we implement as far as technology has to kind of run through that filter to make sure it meets the requirements.
Very good. And I know, Andy, we talked a little bit about security from your perspective as well. Can you maybe add a few comments?
Sure. Yeah, I think I echo Nick's sentiments, and not to bore everyone with the same message, but what I think about on AI is it gets right to that data security and the scary parts of it that we don't yet understand. So it's happening, it's going to happen, but a lot of uncertainties in our industry. I believe that the people are always we're going to be people-centric. There are a lot of responsibilities, as David also talked about, and a lot remains to be seen, and tread carefully.
All right. So we shall see. In terms of business expansion, here we're looking at business growth. It can be either organic or through acquisition. And we've had several nice acquisitions ourselves, as we shared with you yesterday. Increasing capability through acquisition, Eric, what is your thoughts on whether this is going to continue across the industry?
I think it absolutely will. And if you look at what's happening at a macro level in the industry or in the economy right now, you have a couple of things coming together to create a perfect storm. And one is the advanced technological change. Anytime technological change accelerates, it creates disruption, it creates opportunity to unlock hidden value in organizations, which typically leads to M&A sorts of activity. You throw on top of that the ripple effect of COVID and how that's affected the supply chains throughout the world. It's forced organizations to rethink the way they do business and the way they run their supply chains. That too leads to more acquisition, more M&A activity. And then I think just in general, with the economy going through some rough patches right now, in general, anytime the economy is disrupted, it tends to lead to more M&A activity. So I'd say in our client base globally, it's probably 60 to 70% of them or more of our clients that we work with right now throughout the world are going through some sort of M&A activity. They're out actively acquiring companies or merging or trying to figure out how to integrate existing operations. So it's something that I don't see slowing down anytime soon.
Very good. Nick, I know your company's been in acquisition mode, and I know that you're the master of acquisitions in terms of operationalizing them. Can you maybe give us some of your best practices that you've found?
Yeah, best practice is probably the key word out of that is, so when we have an acquisition, the first thing we do is we have our model that, we're going to implement. We have our best practices, and they've worked for us for what we have. But just because they've worked for 8 conversions doesn't mean that we have everything. So the first thing we are going to do is figure out what's best between what we're bringing on with what we have. We keep it a pretty simple approach. We keep it a fast approach. We keep it vanilla as we can. That has been our key to success. The other side of that is our focus with an acquisition is from a ERP standpoint, is let them focus on the thing that they're good at, and that's making product and delivering it to the customer. And we'll take care of the back office side of that. We don't want them to waste their time on the things that aren't making parts for them. So,
Christine, last night at dinner, the topic came up about acquisitions and how they're done. I only have experience at this with one. And I didn't really know what I was doing as far as that goes. It was a learning lesson for sure. But when I described what we did to somebody else at the table, they indicated that more people who are in acquisition mode should do that. And that's really moving fast, right, to Nick's point. In my case, it was a very small company that we acquired, and we converted them from their old former ERP system to Epicor in the first 4 days that we bought them. And like I said, it was relatively small, but put the team to task and said, this is what we're going to do. And it eliminated all of their previous operations immediately. And the sooner you can do that, I think the better off you are from an acquisition standpoint.
I thought we were good at 94 days.
Like I said, it was small, Nick. It's small,
But you got to find those small wins. That's what you got to do. You got to find that quick small wins that you can gain with them, because they're going through a lot of change during that process anyways. They're drinking from a fire hose, and giving them a little bit of relief quickly definitely helps that process for the entire acquisition process.
And one of the things that I didn't realize when we did that 4 days, and I didn't learn this until months later, the person who was part of the acquisition company, who was responsible for the previous ERP system, he was petrified of his job.
Yeah.
I mean, he told me again months later after he realized that, okay, he's got a future and, okay, it might be doing something else or working in a different system. But he confided in me that I was assured, he thought for certain I was going to lose my job. He said, you had everything that we do as a company done in 4 days, right? That's really impressive. I didn't think that you needed me. So the people management, the change management when you go through an acquisition is probably even more important than the technical one.
I agree, by the way.
And I didn't know, Andy, if you wanted to jump in a little
Sure.
bit.
No comments on M&A activity. However, I think all of these trends that we've been talking about really bring up a lot of our growth is happening internally. And so, in fact, here we just received a major award last week that will have us building and controlling all of the underbody structure for both the two biggest OEMs in full-size pickups and SUVs for body-on-frame vehicles. That's going to lead us to we'll be building 3 plants at the same time. Amongst those 3 plants will be 2.4 million square feet. And I don't know that we've ever done 3 at the same time. So both within, outside 4 walls and within 4 walls, I think there's just a lot of excitement and activity and crazy amounts of growth in all these transitions.
Very good. If you want to jump in.
Yeah, I love what David said about the change management piece of it, but I think the example you gave of your ERP guy that was worried about his job, that's the way we should all think about our organizations, is that this technology, as cool as it is, we might all get excited about it here at a conference. We go back to our home offices and try to roll this out to the masses, and people may be on board with it conceptually and say, yeah, this is great. These tool sets can be awesome. It's going to be perfect. It's going to help our business. I get it. I understand why we're doing it. But when it comes time to change me, when you tell me you're taking away my spreadsheet or the way I've done business however long, or the fact that I've thrived in my job through heroics over the years, I've been here forever, and now you're going to automate part of that, I am going to freak out, no matter how well-intentioned I am. Not because I'm a bad person, not because I want to sabotage the project, but because I fear for my own stability and future. So that's the way we have to think about it from a people perspective, especially when you're going through change as it is through M&A integration. People start to panic or get nervous as it is. Then you introduce new technology, you change business processes, you start to standardize. That's just a lot of change for people to consume, and they're going to get nervous. And on the surface, it may look like they're on board and they're supportive, but you have to assume that they are at some point going to freak out, for lack of a better word. And you have to really invest heavily in that change piece of it.
Yeah, very good points. So my last question is, at Epicor, we consider each of you partners not only in helping you run your business, but in making us better. And I want to thank each of you for spending your time with us to express your thoughts and with our audience as well as our leaders as they interact with you. What advice do you have for Epicor to ensure our success in the next 3 to 5 years? And remember that my boss is sitting back there somewhere.
I was going to ask, are you sure you want to go there?
Yes, I do. Actually, I do. I am very interested.
I'll start it. I think keep innovating the technology that we have going. Keep building on the product you have, not only from the additional things that are being added to it, but the core. The statement I guess I think of is, keep thinking big and supporting small is kind of the key word that I would throw out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would echo Nick's comments, right? As I look out into the audience, I'm reminded of the strong relationships that we've built with the user groups in our area, both the Western and the Central user groups. And we make stuff, right? We make stuff all day long, every day. And not to not focus on the core technology that is what got Epicor to this point, I think that'd be detrimental. And I'm not saying that that's happening, but certainly making sure that those areas of the product are as equally impacted as some of the recent acquisitions and other data analytics and things like that.
Very good. And you're one of our cab members, so you make sure that we do that too, right?
Correct. Yes, for sure.
So
for sure.
we've got
Way to
good
put it back on
good
us.
on the
That's
board.
good. That's good.
Something good on the stuff. Blame? No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andrew.
Sure. No, I appreciate the question, and I'd like to comment on, and don't forget about ERP in the next 3 to 5 years. And even though it's not the latest, brightest, and shiny thing, I do need to qualify my next comments so that everybody's aware that I do, in fact, wear CMS embroidered underwear, as may have been evident from my earlier comments. So I think a focus on that ERP system specifically, in light of a lot of the trends and transitions that we're talking about, that's a real, I'd say a diamond in the rough, but it's not really. It's a diamond there, it just needs a little bit more polish and some care and attention, and I think it can really be a big revenue generator for the company.
All right. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I've only got, 8 minutes? I'm going to try to cover what I can in that amount of time. Just kidding. But no, I'd say that, starting with the positive, I think that I view Epicor's leadership team as extremely strong. I think it's sort of like a greatest hits of the ERP software industry. They've sort of assembled this all-star super group of executives that are running the company. So my recommendation would be to keep building on that, keep that team around, because about 10 years ago, I'd say ish, I might have the dates wrong, but about a decade ago, Epicor, I'd say, went through a pretty dark time. They've always had a strong product and a strong suite of products, especially in the manufacturing and distribution space, but there is PE, ownership changes, executive changes, and there's some collateral damage, I'd say, that happened a decade ago where I'd say the ecosystem suffered. The VARs and the resellers in the space, it just wasn't robust, and Epicor had scaled back the professional services piece of it. And this is all in the past. I'm not trying to rehash the past, but the executive team now, I think, is doing a good job of correcting that, but there's still more work to do in that space. And then the last thing I'd say, or the third thing I'd suggest as a recommendation, is just to provide more clarity on where different products fit and where they don't. Because I think the beauty of Epicor is they've got this sort of best of breed strategy where they've got different systems that fit different situations. They're not trying to be everything to everyone. They're not trying to do a one-size-fits-all strategy, which I think is the right approach, especially in this space. But they could do a better job, I think, in my opinion, on the marketing side, just to be more clear about where those products fit and how they're different from one another.
And Christine, I'll also add that yesterday when I got the chance to talk to Steve, and I'll echo what Eric said, since we started using the product, which we bought back in 2015, which is shortly thereafter is I think when the leadership change happened, it's been very good. And I really think that Epicor's focus on us as the customer, right? Whether it's the advisory board that we sit on or the product advisory boards, listening to the customers and getting their feedback, I think that that's really important, and would strongly encourage you to continue to do that.
Well, good. I want to thank our panelists today. Thank you very much. And I hope that each of you found how we move is changing with the help of 3 great companies. And especially thank you, Eric, for joining us as well. You're not alone in solving your greatest challenges. Leverage this conference to talk to a great community of manufacturers in this room to help solve those challenges. Epicor is here to help, and there are great opportunities for your business to grow and succeed. Elevate with Epicor, get moving. Thank you.